Well, eastern Ukraine targeted overnight by Russia, launching more than 200 drones and missiles. The attacks happening just hours after President Vladimir Zelenskyy and other European leaders held talks with President Trump aimed at finding a path toward a peace deal. We're joined now by Hilary Appel, government professor at Claremont McKenna College. She joins me now for a deeper dive into what happened at the White House. Hilary, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Hilary, let's start with the number of European allies that showed up with President Zelenskyy at the White House yesterday. This morning, we did get word President Trump spoke to Fox News, saying that Ukraine and NATO allies have to abandon efforts to have Ukraine join the security alliance. It seems to be a big deal for Vladimir Putin, and this seems to be an issue that has been percolating over the last few months. Can you describe to us what the difference is between providing security, which the Trump administration says they would do without boots on the ground, along with European leaders, and NATO itself?
That's right. The difference is certainly murky, but it is absolutely important to recognize that it would be a non-starter for the United States to suggest that Ukraine could join NATO and therefore get those Article 5 security guarantees, which means that an attack against one is an attack against all and would require the United States to respond, including with boots on the ground. That's the understanding of what it means to be part of NATO now. The security guarantees that were offered in very vague terms during the meeting yesterday, along with the European leaders, came up with language that sounded like Article 5-like guarantees or security guarantees that were not specified. The only somewhat specific mention to what the United States might do as coordinating the security guarantee was to provide some kind of air support. But even that is just a bit of information that you could cling to that would suggest something new in terms of U.S. support for Ukraine's defense.
So, but the big deal is here: why does Vladimir Putin not want Ukraine to join NATO? What problem could that pose for him?
This has been a sticking point for Russia, for President Putin, since the very beginning of the war. And this has been one of the justifications that the president of Russia has offered for its invasion of Ukraine, that, you know, some of the sort of demands that were made prior to the full-scale invasion 3 years ago referred specifically to promises that Ukraine would never join NATO. So this has been a sensitivity. Expansion of NATO into Ukraine was seen as somehow not recognizing that this should be Russia's sphere of influence, that this should be something that recognized it was going too far, it was crossing a red line. So from the very beginning of this conflict, since both the full-scale invasion, but even in the years leading up to it, focused very much on the importance of excluding Ukraine's sovereign right to choose the security alliance that it joins.
The security alliance, though, could that be the alternative to a NATO to protect Ukraine against any future incursions by Russia?
That's right. It's one way to really imagine that there's meaning behind this movement to reach a peace deal, because if it's just a moment to allow Russia to regroup, to gain territory in Donbass that it doesn't yet control, even though it does control 87% of Donbass, there's still remaining territory that it has suffered brutal losses, huge casualties to try to gain Donbass. It has not succeeded. In order to try to secure that territory, it may have to tolerate something that sounds like a security guarantee that is associated with NATO, but it could not be NATO in name, and it could not have quite the same level of commitment that a NATO guarantee would require. But without it, I don't know what Ukraine has to gain, because Russia has not been able to win over all of Donbass through military means. And so this is what Ukraine could possibly offer, although up until now it has absolutely refused to trade security guarantees for territory. So it's perhaps something it's doing to bargain along the way, but it may ultimately choose to do that to end the war. But at this point, it's really a guessing game. Yeah. We don't know how far Ukraine will go, but to get those security guarantees, that is an enormous development that came out of yesterday's meeting, if that is something that can actually be realized.
And we'll see what happens next, because now President Trump says he's setting up a meeting between President Zelenskyy and President Putin. Professor Hilary Appel, we've run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us and providing your insight into this very important meeting. We'll see what happens next in it.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.